Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Here we are.
Hello from the lovely courtyard by the LAX.
That's right. It's so close to LAX. The giant LAX letters are just like you can see them
Kitty
from
corner.
here. Yeah.
From where we are. So anyway, we're on Los Angeles this week, just doing some fun band things.
Very fun. Yes.
And having a little adventure. And so that was all right. Today we actually went to Griffith Park. And I didn't find the haunted picnic table number 29 that we talked about in the last podcast, so we didn't find it today.
Yeah, that was cool. That was my first time seeing that, and it was a beautiful place.
Griffith Park we talk about in our Ghosts of Hollywood Boulevard episode.
That's right.
And actually, funny enough, and I don't remember if we talked about this in the actual episode, but 3 years ago we played at a place called the Pig and Whistle.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles.
Yep.
So the Pig and Whistle is on Hollywood Boulevard. And Griffith Park is like where the Terminator shows up in the original Terminator.
I didn't know that.
So picture the original Terminator, and on the observatory deck is where he shows up, and that's where it's got all the great views of
the
Los
naked
Angeles.
Arnold.
The naked Arnold.
Okay.
It's where I walk in. I'm not wearing any clothes, and you're like, "What's going on?" It's like I'm not wearing clothes.
Oh gosh, he's back. He's back.
Don't forget, I said I'd be back.
And our trip has been full of Schwarzenegger references because he's everywhere in the city.
I was the governor.
Yep. So that's where. Okay, so he shows up there.
Right, and it's in a dozen other movies, but you recognize it because it's where all the nice vistas of the city are. And so, anyway, we visited today.
And it was packed with people.
Oh man, unbelievable!
Packed.
But anyway, so 3 years ago we played a place called the Pig and Whistle. And Griffith Park is also right where the Hollywood sign is. So you see the letters and things, the Hollywood, hooray for, kind of thing. So the place we played at was named after a woman that was said that she killed herself by jumping from the Hollywood sign back when it was Hollywood Land. It used to say Hollywood Land before it said Hollywood.
Okay.
And her name was Peg Entwistle.
Yeah.
And so that's how the place got the name. And I just thought that was interesting.
I think it's really strange. I mean,
so we were there today.
Just how the owner would be like, what should we name our restaurant? Well, you know that girl that killed herself on the Hollywood sign? Let's take her name, but let's make it something funny that we can make a little image with.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't know.
We can, and then when people talk about it, they can be like, yeah, it's the... And,
yeah, my favorite. Yeah,
Pig and
exactly. There was a Pig and Whistle in Milwaukee, too.
Yes. There was a Pig and Whistle in
For
Milwaukee.
a while, yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
That was right by Esterbrook Park. Yeah, I remember that was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, you guys don't need to know about that.
Just a little Wisconsin tie in there.
But the thing is, our story today does have a big, big Wisconsin connection.
That's right.
So, but we'll get there. We'll get there in just a second. Other fun things we did when we were out here. So last night we performed at like an open mic and networking party that kind of we organized and stuff like that for.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Music.
Lots of fun and interesting people and some great musicians performed songs.
Yeah, it really was good music. And for a music licensing website that I do work for, broadjam.com. And so that was really fun performing and doing that. We went to the Venice Beach Boardwalk. And
yes, we did. And you know who we saw there? We saw lots of Arnold there.
It was lots, because it's right by Muscle Beach where the people work out outside and things
so
like that.
So all the t-shirt shops, the mannequins all have Arnold Schwarzenegger heads, which is hilarious.
And it felt like you were going back to the 1990s with all the rollerbladers.
Yeah, that was really fun. It did feel like a time warp.
Yeah. Well, anytime I see a rollerblader, I'm like, did the Millennium forget to call you?
And I don't know if it's just because I've been in the Midwest for so long, but I also, every time I see a really tanned, muscular man, it makes me feel like I'm in the 80s.
What do you mean? I thought you're sitting across from one right now. That's right.
I mean, aside from you.
Thanks.
But yeah, just the dudes walking down the beach and like strutting their stuff with their
yeah,
big,
it's pretty funny.
Their like perfect tans and everything, and their bleached, surfer hair.
Sweet pecs.
Right.
No, so that
was fun playing there. It was just neat to see the variety of people walking by, and
Yeah, the variety of life.
they seem to enjoy it. A couple surfer dudes stopped and listened for a while.
Yeah, it was fun. Just a large cross section of humanity.
Yes.
Is always a pleasure to see.
Yes.
And it's something we always don't. Madison's a wonderful place, but it's not
It's
really
smaller.
a large cross section
Right.
of humanity.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was fun. And then that night, though, we went to a beautiful house in Laurel Canyon,
Oh my gosh.
and
Incredible.
another great vista from the. I'll probably link to my Instagram picture or whatever. Or your picture is way better than mine, so I'll link.
Sure.
I'll link to yours.
Yeah, no, we can. We have a friend of mine who is a rock photographer and has taken many iconic pictures of people like Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Prince, Whitney Houston, like all of the greats. He's got a book called Rock and Roll Lens, and he's got his studio up there, so he invited us to come and see it, and it was very. I mean, Laurel Canyon really is like the magical place that they talk about.
Yeah,
it's just
it
so
was
beautiful
something
up
else.
there.
But what was funny is that it was a former house of Gary Kurtz, who was an executive producer on Star Wars, and also a movie that we've talked about in this podcast like 2 or 3 times called Return to Oz.
Yes.
And so I know we just talked about it within like the last 3 episodes. 'Cause
Right.
I don't remember what it was, but it was something about, because that woman has switchable heads in Return to Oz. And we were talking about the woman with switchable heads.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen it, so you were explaining it to me.
You didn't watch it in the meantime?
No.
All right. Then your job is to go see Return
All
to
right.
Oz. It's a great
I'll,
movie.
in my copious spare time,
It won't
I'll
be
try
as
to check it out.
terrifying as if you were 10 years old like I was.
that's okay. All right.
But I think you'll still enjoy it. Anyway,
Cool.
so the whole thing was super fun. And
Very.
now we're just wrapping up the trip. We had some fun music.
Oh my gosh.
And got to visit some places that we hadn't moved for. So it was a good trip. And now we're just hanging out in the hotel, waiting to go back. And so we thought this is the time to talk about the topic this week, which there's a new TV show coming out today. Actually, today.
The day the podcast comes out.
Today for us is Sunday night, but for the podcast, it's Monday. And so the show out today is about Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes, a couple of my favorite guys.
Right, we all love them. We all love them. But the thing is that it's like a fictionalized show that treats them as detectives.
Yeah.
So it's like they get together and they solve cases for Scotland Yard.
And I cannot believe that it's already coming out, because I remember seeing a preview for this a long time ago and thinking like, ooh, that looks awesome. I can't wait to see that. But it seemed really far off at the time, so now it's here.
I think we mentioned it in our episode where we interviewed Brian Showers and talked about
That's right.
like paranormal Victorian stuff.
Yes.
And so they had just announced it was going to be a show. Anyway, that was a year ago now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so here it is.
Time.
Right, time.
Keeps ticking.
Keeps going by. So Harry Houdini, though, what's the Wisconsin connection? He was born in Hungary, in Budapest, Hungary.
Okay.
He was born in Budapest, Hungary, and they moved to Appleton, Wisconsin
Oh, good old Appleton.
in 1878. And Harry Houdini's dad was the rabbi
Wow.
in Appleton. So
another Wisconsin connection for us.
Right.
Our home state.
they were there for about 10 years before actually he no longer became the rabbi, or something happened, and
That's a pretty long time to be planted somewhere.
yeah, I was going to say 10 years. And so he's originally named Eric Weitz.
Oh wow, that's really not as cool sounding
not
as Harry Houdini.
Sure. And no, but they were raised in Appleton, and then they moved to New York City.
Ooh.
After he was no
They went
longer
from
a rabbi.
from Appleton to the Big Apple.
Yes, there you
You
go.
have to stick to apples.
So Harry Houdini did that. Then he started being a magician and all those kind of things. And then he found out that the magic tricks he was doing were not as successful as when he would try to escape from something.
Ah, okay.
And when you think about that now, there's very few like escape artists now. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
something you
true.
really hear about all the time.
Unless you're, in Vegas or
Right.
where there's tons and tons of that stuff.
Sure, but escape art is not as big as it was,
Right. I mean, they're not like.
And the thing is, Houdini had a brother that also did it, and they performed together every once in a while. But he had a
That's cool.
brother, and his brother's name was Dash. So it's Harry Houdini and Dash Houdini. Dash wasn't his real name. Nobody actually gets named Dash.
It's a great name, though.
It's a pretty tough name. And so, I mean, they did it together. Before I was doing research for this episode, I never knew that Harry Houdini
Yeah, I guess
had
I
a brother.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that was also an escape artist. So can you imagine if you're a parent, and Houdini's parents are important in this story, but if you imagine, and people are like, oh, so what does your son do? Well, he's an escape artist. That's awesome. What does your other son do? He's an escape artist too.
Oh, and what do they do for a living?
Right. You're like, both of my sons.
That's the musician question.
Right.
What do you do? Play music. Oh, well, how do you make money?
The next question. So Harry Houdini is the escape artist. Dash Houdini is brother.
Yeah, and so his brother apparently couldn't escape from the great shadow of his
right, because we never heard of him. Nobody ever heard of him.
Right.
And, for some reason, I always thought that Harry Houdini was his real name, too.
I always did, too. I mean...
Right, because it's a stage name, and there was a French magician named Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. And so, how was that French there?
That's great.
Was it pretty good?
And they hate H's.
Oh.
They're very difficult to pronounce in French.
Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin.
Yeah, there you go. It would be more probably like Houdin.
Houdin. And,
but pretty good, Mike. Pretty
thanks,
good.
Thanks. I'm working on my
your
French
authenticity is starting to improve.
I'm just going to go start speaking French to some French dudes right now.
Oui, oui.
Right. I may sound like Pepe Le Pew or something like that. Oh.
Sacré bleu.
So Harry Houdini believed that when you put an I at the end of the name, it meant in French. And so he wanted to be like that magician, Houdin.
Oh,
so
that's
why he
cool.
took that Houdini.
That's a good way to select a stage name.
Yeah, I agree.
Has some meaning to it. It's not just, okay, what are people going to remember or spell right on the poster or whatever?
Right. An actual homage to someone. So, and his original name was like Harry Handcuff Houdini or something like that.
Triple H.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Houdini is all into magic. He forms like the Society for Magicians. So he's like the driving force behind like the Magicians Union and everything, getting everybody together.
Attaboy.
Yep. But he also is really into going to seances.
Right.
He's he loves seances because once his mother passed, all he wanted to do was contact his mother.
So sad.
And so right after the First World War, spiritualism. So that's different than people say like, well, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person.
Right.
This is
we've had discussions about this as well. It was an actual movement.
Yeah. And so spiritualism, the idea that you could talk to the dead. Mm-hmm. And that mediums could do it. And we talked about this because really who helped create the spiritualist movement in the United States was the Fox sisters. And so on our April Fool's Day Paranormal Hoaxes episode, that they were eventually revealed, like all the things they'd done were hoaxes after their life was destroyed by becoming alcoholics and all those kind of things.
Yeah, that's pulling the curtain.
Yeah.
And revealing Oz.
Right. And so the Fox sisters really started the spiritualist movement in the United States. And then by the time you got to World War I, so many people had died, particularly in Europe. So many English sons had died, including the son of Arthur Conan Doyle, Arthur Conan Doyle is he's the author behind Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
So if you guys aren't sure who he is,
Sir Arthur Conan.
Sir Arthur Conan. Now here's something also I did not know. I always thought they knighted him because Sherlock Holmes is so popular.
Okay.
Kind of like
I would think that.
Kind of like they knighted Patrick Stewart. And
Yeah.
They had like Anthony Hopkins and things like that. It's like, yeah, you're Captain Picard. You get to be a knight now. No, actually, he was knighted because of a historical book he wrote about the British involvement in the Boer War.
Really?
Yeah, so he wasn't knighted to anything to do with Sherlock Holmes because he really wanted to write serious nonfiction. Even though he creates one of the most popular characters, enduring characters. Right now, there's that Elementary show, which is real popular.
Yeah, yeah.
Sherlock Holmes. There's the Sherlock Holmes with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right.
Which is incredibly popular. And they're making the third movie with Robert Downey Jr.
Wow. Yeah.
So think about Sherlock Holmes as a intellectual property. This also might be because Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain.
Oh, really?
So you don't have to pay.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because like the first Sherlock Holmes novel is like 150 40 years ago. Or maybe not that long. Maybe like 130 years ago. So it's just like when a studio wants to grab like Greek mythology, like Clash of the Titans or Egyptian mythology, as we talked about gods of Egypt, like the stories are already there. You don't have to pay J.K. Rowling $1 million to use them. But anyway, so Sherlock Holmes is more popular than ever. Big screen, small screen. Everybody loves Sherlock Holmes. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle did not. He hated it, and he would write about how much he hated.
That's amazing.
He felt entrapped. No, entrapped isn't even the right word. Entrapped would be like somebody like fooled him into it. He felt trapped, like entrapped.
He was like typecast as, or not typecast. Boy, we are striking out here on our vocabulary words. I'm sorry. My elementary school teachers, our vocab today is a little low. We've got a little too much sun out here. It's like our brains are melting. But no, he felt he didn't want it. That wasn't what he wanted people to focus on.
Right.
The media and whatnot. So
it was just so immensely popular. 1893, he kills off the character.
That's right. Yeah.
Down Reichenbach Falls and
right. That's one way to end it.
Right. And so it's like he kills off the character.
But it's interesting that he did it because he was sick of it.
He didn't want to. He didn't want to be associated. He wanted to be what he considered a serious author. And I just think it's funny. It's when people say
that's crazy.
Like when you hear an actor who's incredibly famous,
right,
and who's you think is on the top of the world or really successful, and it's like, well, what I really want to do is direct.
Yeah.
There was a good interview with Billy Bob Thornton one time. Billy Bob Thornton's a guy in Sling Blade. He was Mr. Angelina Jolie. Right. Mr. Angelina Jolie before Brad Pitt.
Yes.
And, he's a talented actor and a talented director. But the thing is, he's got a band.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what the Boxmasters. And that's what he really wants to do.
Really?
Like, that's what he always really wanted to do, was be in a band. So the acting thing was just something he did while he was working on being in a band. And then it became...
That's crazy.
I mean, that's when you hear him talk about it, he makes it sound like he really wishes that he was a successful musician. Huh. But then he tells a great story about like the Boxmasters. Like one time they go play a show, and I think we can probably relate to this. He goes to play the show, and like they're wondering why the bartender hasn't shown up yet, but the PA system worked and everything.
Okay.
And nobody showed up, but they thought the bartender would eventually show up and at least make a little money or whatever.
Yeah, and usually you start playing and people,
Right. Nobody ever showed up, but they still played. They showed up at the venue and the show's canceled. Nobody, and they
That's
just
awesome.
They still got in and played.
It's so sad, but you're right. I could totally see that happening to us and us doing that as well.
Well, we gotta.
Well, shoot, we told them we'd start at 8. Like,
right. We sent the posters out. So that kind of thing.
Wow.
And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was the same way. And something I learned today, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was Scottish. And so we watched a quick video. That was the little voice you were hearing in the background of of him in 1930. I
figured that was him. Okay, cool.
And it's just this I'm like, holy, listen to that accent. Where's that? I mean, he's obviously Scottish. And you just didn't think of him because you think of Sherlock Holmes as such a London guy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess in the new in Skyfall, the James Bond movie, they show that James Bond is Scottish too. Yep. So, hey, and I love Scotland too. We were talking today about how I was like, I've been to Loch Ness.
Yeah, I want to go there.
Yeah, you'd love it. So,
I want to go there. Well, the last time we talked about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I also shared this, but I'll just recap it really quick.
Oh yeah, the castle story.
Yeah, that I did an exchange program to Switzerland when I was in high school. And my host family's grandpa was the caretaker for the castle that had been Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's castle. So we got to go and wander around in it.
And it didn't have like Sherlock Holmes statues or anything?
Yeah, it didn't. I don't remember if it had statues, but apparently in that castle, because it was so long ago, I was just searching on the web to see what I could find about it. But apparently he had a room in there that was set up to be like Sherlock Holmes'
study.
Yeah. So it had the violin and the,
Oh, that's cool.
And it said that it had like a half-eaten meal there to make it feel like actively lived in.
But that's going to smell bad after a while, isn't it?
Right. Maybe every meal you just eat half of it and put the other half in the room. I don't know.
You're like, well, a couple times a week, we're only going to eat half this meal and we got to put it in the room. And then we got to go back in there and take the old plate out.
But it said that
rats. Like if you got mice, and those castles got mice.
Oh my goodness. probably very large ones.
Right.
But it was just neat to see that. And then it had this like dungeon area, and he had like a collection of old medieval weapons and stuff like that.
Sure.
Just neat stuff.
So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, interesting Scotsman.
Yes.
Hated being Sherlock Holmes, but I mean, he obviously liked the money that came in.
I would think so.
And that's why he brought Sherlock Holmes back. Because he's like,
spoiler.
Right. He's like, oh God, I gotta bring this guy back.
Yeah.
And so he does. But so his historical work is something that he's really invested in, but it's not what the public wants. But it was still good enough that the king gave him a knightship.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So obviously he was no slouch.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what happens is that his son gets injured in the First World War. So his son gets injured in the First World War and is like at a hospital or a sanitarium and has to live there.
Okay.
And then eventually dies a couple of years later.
Sad.
And so he is just distraught. Him and his wife are just distraught.
Understandably.
And he is totally into spiritual.
Oh.
So not just because of his son like accelerated it, but he's totally into it. His wife is a medium. So he says...
How convenient.
So now this is something we don't get too much anymore with modern day psychics and mediums and stuff. And it's funny, like on Twitter and stuff, like how many psychics and mediums and everything that we meet constantly.
Yeah, definitely.
And I always think it's a very extreme claim. Like, well, I'm a bit of a medium myself, and I'm just like, what? Like that's when you first meet somebody or whatever. Meeting a lot of people in this field, and everybody's just like, well, yeah. No, I can talk to the dead. And you're like, hey, now,
really?
So right. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife, though, is, she's a spiritualist medium.
She sees dead people.
Well, she writes. It's called automatic writing.
Oh, sure.
So that's something that you don't really see much of anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw it on Arthur C. Clarke used to have a show called Arthur C. Clarke's World of Strange Powers.
Yeah.
And it was like that was very that and In Search Of, but with Leonard Nimoy were like the shows I would watch as a kid, and I would just sit there.
And I'd be watching Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Mm-hmm.
And Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh yeah. And so automatic writing is where you get in touch with the spirit, you kind of close your eyes and they just write on pieces of paper. Like it's really fast.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it on Arthur C. Clarke's World of Strange Powers, I'm like, what is this?
That sounds terrifying.
They're just writing.
Just a hand furiously going across the page. Like
right. And then new pieces of paper. Keep on putting down pieces of paper. So yeah, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife was a automatic writer.
Okay.
And I sometimes I wish, working on blog posts and things like that, that I was an automatic writer because I hate having to come up with these things.
Right. It'd be nice.
So what happens is Houdini's mother dies, and he is desperate to get in touch with her. Like he will, he's hoping that some of these spiritualists are correct, that they're right. So he's traveling and performing a lot, but he's also living in New York City. Arthur Conan Doyle comes into New York City and does like a series of lectures where he's trying to convince people of life after death.
Wow.
So he's
That's
really
hardcore.
This is like 1820, and so he's really into it. I'm sorry, 1920. And I don't know if whatever period the TV show's in, because we haven't seen the TV show yet. But they say at the turn of the century, and the Arthur Conan Doyle they have doesn't look very old. No. So Arthur Conan Doyle would have been like 60 in like 1920. And they have a guy that like a good-looking guy.
Right, see, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is I think they're just trying to make it appeal to younger people.
Right. So when I think of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I think of like like an older dude that kind of looks like a walrus. You know what I mean? Like a walrus-looking English guy. Like, hello.
Sure. Yeah, sitting at his writing table with a pipe.
Right.
Smoking.
Looking like a walrus.
Right.
So
walrus.
And so this guy's a younger guy, and so the guy they have playing Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is a guy by the name of Stephen Mangan.
Okay.
Who's like a good-looking kind of studly guy.
Yeah.
Who also, though, played in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. So they made in England, they made a Dirk Gently series a few years ago. And so I saw him in the Dirk Gently.
I see.
So I loved Dirk Gently because that's a character created by Douglas Adams.
Our favorite.
Yes. who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
And that was his other book series. He wrote 2 books.
Oh, and I haven't read that series.
It's pretty good. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency and The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul.
Ooh.
You know, interesting memory about The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul for me.
What's that?
Oh, I think I was 13 years old. I read it when I was on some kind of trip. We were like on a family trip for the summer. And I thought a girl was cute that lived by us for like the first time. Maybe I wasn't quite 13 yet, but I was like 12. And she was like a couple years older. Right. I thought a girl was cute for the first time. Not even a crush, just like, I didn't even know what to feel, I think. And then like there was another guy. We were all there for like 2 months, you know, so we were at this college and our parents would be doing collegial stuff and we would just be living there over the summer. And anyway, there was another guy there, and like he was a couple years, like he was 2 years older than her or something like that anyway, so he was a big stud. And I didn't even say anything or anything like that, but like he made out with her or whatever, and I just felt jealous for the first time.
Whoa.
While I was reading that book. So every time I think of The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul.
That's so weird how your mind like connects those things.
So when I watched that, and it's, you know, I wasn't even, you know, you're just attracted to a person for the first time. You're like, wow, I didn't even know I could do that.
Right.
You know, like I didn't even know.
Really funny.
That's the thing. It's just a cute girl. And anyway, it's like, oh, I'm jealous. And I thought about it and I felt weird. And it was funny. So now I think about that book. So when I was watching the TV show, then I felt jealous. No, I did. I did have that association.
You just instantly feel jealous when you see that show.
Right. And they're making a new version of it too. Like it's going to be on US TV and things like that. So
nice.
If you're a Douglas Adams fan, I know you are a Douglas Adams fan.
I am, but now I kind of want to read it.
Yeah, you'll like it. You should read it.
Yeah.
It's funny. Well, that was one of the reasons I knew you'd be cool, Wendy, when your online name was Trillion.
Yes. And she's such a weird character in that book, but I picked that because it was like less than 8 characters and
right.
It fit the requirements for ICQ back in the day. Oh my gosh. And I love that book so much.
Yes. So that's the guy that's playing Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay.
Stephen Mangan. And Arthur Conan Doyle is performing a series of lectures in New York. And it's like at Carnegie Hall. Like it's like massive crowds.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Yeah,
I'd go if I heard he was coming to my town.
Right. So the guy that wrote Sherlock Holmes is coming to give a lecture on proving life after death.
That'd be amazing.
Now, it's funny is because also people think of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle as someone who has, like, he's smarter than the regular guy because his character is smarter than the regular guy, right? Like, he might not be...
Oh, right. You like transfer the character to him because when you said you thought he looked walrusy.
Yeah, he totally looked walrusy.
And I'm like, no, I picture him wearing and basically I pictured him wearing the Sherlock Holmes hat and like
right, the author.
Like all the things that, and it's like, wait, no, he's not.
So
Sherlock
you're
Holmes.
applying the attributes of the character to the writer.
Yeah, just naturally, you know, like.
And because Sherlock Holmes is such a master of deductive reasoning, and you think of that as scientific mind, you would think that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle giving you the skinny on life after death is going to be something like profound.
Right.
Well, it certainly did make an impression. Several people like killed themselves and killed other people. Yeah. So a Brooklyn Potter, Frank Alexi, stabbed his wife in the head with an ice pick, claiming that he had seen an evil spirit sitting there that had followed him home from Carnegie Hall. A young man killed himself and his roommate because he explained there were no gas bills in the afterlife. So these stories
is incredibly harsh.
These stories come from prairieghosts.com, which is written by Troy Taylor.
Oh, okay. So are any of these lectures like recorded or notated anywhere? Or?
Well, the YouTube video I was watching with Arthur Conan Doyle's voice, when I realized like, oh, he's a Scotsman. It's obviously not like my ridiculous Scotsman accent. That was him talking about life after death in like a little movie they made in 1930. So those particular lectures aren't on like YouTube or anything.
It would be
like
interesting to hear or read them.
Yeah.
To see.
Oh man, listen to this. One woman, Maud Fancher, heard Doyle giving a speech on the radio and then murdered her son and consumed the contents of a bottle of Lysol.
Oh my god.
Before she swallowed the poison, which took a week to kill her. She wrote a letter to Conan Doyle and told him that spiritualism inspired her to the act. Then she left a detailed letter for her husband explaining what she wanted her baby to be placed in her arms when she was placed in the tomb.
Oh, is that disturbing?
So that's the idea. Like there's a next world, and you get that. Well, if you think about Prince that just died.
Mm-hmm.
And the beginning
we saw a memorial for him too on the
right outside
Rock Walk.
The Guitar Center Rock Walk had a nice memorial to Prince today. I'll post that. I got that picture, so I'll post that picture in the show notes. But so like in the beginning of Let's Go Crazy, Prince talks about, he's like, there's another world, the afterlife, a world of never ending happiness where, you can always see the sun day or night. Right. So
and if the elevator tries to bring you down,
go crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But that funny thing, that idea that you are really telling people, and you can see why the concept of heaven was so popular. Like if you're working on a farm and like a peasant, like it's in the Middle Ages where people like never traveled more than a mile away from their homes in their life, and you were kind of kept down in that feudal system, a peasant. You were a peasant in service of a lord, in service.
So you're not hopeful that you're going to get a big promotion someday and
right,
be the president or something.
The idea that we have in the United States, which is, it's still, I think it's still pretty unique to the United States, is that you can start off poor and get rich.
Right.
Well, and that's why people came here. That's why Harry Houdini went to Appleton, Wisconsin. Eric, the Weitz family went to from Hungary because they saw an opportunity and wanted to go for it.
Right.
And when you don't have any hope of upward mobility, period, any social life, you're gonna be a peasant till you die.
Yeah.
That's it. You have a lord.
Yeah.
Who looks over the property and stuff like that, and you farm for the Lord, and that's you're going to be your life until you're dead.
But then
you get to go to heaven.
Yay!
So if you're a good boy or good girl, you get to go to heaven at the end of it. And so you can see why people why this is so popular, And then it's the idea when you lose somebody, that they're in a better place. I mean, obviously Arthur Conan Doyle was devastated by the loss of his son.
Terrible.
Houdini was devastated by the loss of his mother.
Right.
And he would write pamphlets. He would go, he'd go to all these seances, like 100 seances in a year and stuff like that. He would go and he would find ways to defraud them because he would know the magician's secrets. Because the thing is, and this is something I learned today too. I feel like it's a day of new learnings.
Man, I know. This is cool stuff too.
Magicians... We call them magicians. They're really like illusionists, things like, But in the early 20th century, they claimed to have paranormal powers.
Whoa.
So they wouldn't just say that this is a magic trick or I'm a magician, this is all an act. There was a particular group, they're called the Davenport brothers. And they said they were actually, actually magicians. Like they actually were talking to the dead. They were doing all these things, and so they weren't just saying this is a trick, that we had supernatural powers. And that's what enables us to do these kind of things.
Okay.
Well, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he thinks that Houdini has supernatural powers and just won't admit it.
Oh.
So he thinks that Houdini
that is cool.
is like a superhero.
Yeah.
Not just a regular guy that knows how to do that.
Sleight of hand and that type of thing. He's actually...
But that he's a superhero. And... and they have conversations about it. And so when Conan Doyle is, doing these lectures on spiritualism in New York City, he meets up with Harry Houdini because he wants to meet the guy that's got supernatural powers, and Harry Houdini wants to talk to a guy that he thinks is intelligent, maybe, about spiritualism and how it's a load of hooey.
Hooey.
And so then they met up, and Harry Houdini was so excited to meet somebody who believed in spiritualism that he didn't think was an idiot.
So it sounds like basically what we have here is peanut butter meeting chocolate.
It is. It's one of those. Right. It's magic.
Yeah, because the conversations they must have had. So now Houdini, didn't he have that $1 million challenge to anybody who could prove there was...
That's James the Amazing Randy.
Oh, I thought Houdini had something like that.
I don't know about anything. I think that, he would try to debunk mediums because to see if he could talk to his mother, because he was actually hoping he could talk to his mother.
I really thought. So what he had was, he had a $10,000 prize to anyone who could exhibit supernatural phenomena that he could not mirror. So as he was touring around and doing his show, he would say, prepare yourselves. Yeah, so like different people in different cities, mediums or whatever. And so that was the Houdini thing. So he, after trying to prove it himself, he was putting it out there to anyone else.
All right. So that he did have a challenge, a $10,000 challenge, which obviously is still pretty good money today. But back in 1920, that's a monster amount of money.
Right, exactly.
I could buy 2 Model T cars. But so they started hanging out together in New York City when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yeah, they became friends.
They're like superstar buddies, like
it's
rock star.
Right. They're like when big famous people. It's
like when a basketball player and a rock star
like
are friends
hang out
or something. Yeah,
sure. It's like this. There's a new band with Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp. And Joe Perry from Aerosmith,
right? And they're like
the Hollywood Vampires, and so you're like, how did they all meet? Can you imagine just like hanging like like they're in a Denny's or something like that, and they're like, we should probably play in a band. So like Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle start becoming buddies,
that's cool.
And then that's the basis of that. Now I don't know how. Obviously, they're not sticking to the truth of it, but.
Yeah,
but we'll see when we watch the show.
But obviously, there's lots of opportunity there for some cool dialogue and.
Well, the thing is that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he experienced some medium frauds too. There was one spirit that referred to him as Sir Sherlock Holmes instead of actually his name. There's another one that appeared from a cabinet with so they'd have these spirit cabinets. Like you have a seance and everybody's in a circle and it's dark, and then you have the closet door right behind you would open up and then a face would appear or something like that. And all these different kind of tricks. So a seance really was more of a magic show than anything else, like the knocking.
And the table shaking and raising. And,
right, they'd have all these little tricks. And ectoplasm.
What? So Slimer?
Yeah, just like, that's where,
when
they talk about Slimer, like ectoplasm would appear as that was
like a sign that...
a manifestation of slime. Gosh. So that's why Dan Aykroyd put that in Ghostbusters.
Funny.
Is because of that ectoplasm. And that's what they called it, ectoplasm would appear in the middle of these seances and
That's gross.
Yeah, gross. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Oh, no.
We'll go back to that in just a little bit. But the thing is, Conan Doyle was at a actual seance where he saw what looked like the face of his dead mother appear in the spirit box.
Okay.
And then he reached out and then felt it was like a dude. It was like a dude dressed up, And the thing is, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he would really go to bat for mediums and spiritualists and things. There were these pictures of fairies that little girls took in England.
I remember reading about those.
Yeah, and there's the famous pictures of fairies. And today it obviously looks like Photoshop.
Yeah, it's kind of like some of those really bad UFO Photoshops or like alien ones where they're like, look, you can see next to the flying saucer, there's a little man. And it's just obviously just a dude in a suit, like in an alien suit.
It's not even close. So anyway, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, though, was really big on these fairy
Okay.
And, when the girls were when they got old, like in the 1960s or whatever, they eventually said, this is all. We made it up. They made little, like a cutout of a fairy that, and lighting and stuff like that. And that's how they took the picture. But they're cool photos.
Yeah, it reminds me of crop circles.
Yeah.
Remember, it was for such a long time before someone fessed up and showed how they created them.
Right, here's how I did the crop circle.
And you're
and people have been doing it for decades now, and
but they're still awesome looking.
Oh yeah, crop circles are cool.
Do those still show up? I haven't seen any reports lately.
Oh yeah, every once in a while. Yeah. It's not as big as it used to be, when it was a Led Zeppelin album cover and stuff like that. Right. But they still do crop circles every once in a while.
Okay, that's cool.
But it's not aliens. It's
an artist,
right?
Basically,
it's basically cow tipping. It's especially these guys are bored and they're just gonna do something in the middle of nowhere. So they have, it's Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. They're hanging out. They even take a little trip to Atlantic City together. And while they're swimming, Houdini, they're in the swimming pool, and Houdini, shows off by showing how long he can hold his breath underwater.
Oh, man.
Because he would do, escapes and stuff like that underwater, chained up and everything. And, that's hang out and they would just talk about spiritualism and stuff like that. And there's a certain character by the name of Mina Crandon. She was also known as Marjorie. She was a Boston medium, originally from Canada, but she became a famous medium in Boston in like the 1920s. And so her followers said like she was the most amazing because she could make fingerprints appear.
That's pretty cool.
So they'd see a ghost hand would come down, and then they would test for fingerprints, and there'd be no one at the table.
Oh, that's clever.
It'd be different than anybody else at the table. Sometimes she also would hold seances in the nude.
Whoa.
And the ectoplasm would come out of her.
No.
Yeah. Oh. I said that where we're going with this. Right. And it was also said that she had affairs with like her investigators.
Sounds like quite a character.
Yeah. Right. Like if people would try to debunk her, like the rumor was that she would do it with them.
Oh.
So to kind of, I mean, she was working the system, let's say.
Yeah.
Well, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle thought she was brilliant. And that became a big sticking point between him and Harry Houdini.
Oh, because he didn't believe in her and then...
Yeah. And they would have like a back and forth. Like her and Harry Houdini had back and forth, kind of fights
challenges
and everything.
And
yeah, challenges. They have this Scientific American magazine. Still exists today.
Uh-huh.
But in 1923, they had a contest. They sponsored a contest that said $2,500 to any medium who could show genuine psychic ability. They get an American psychical researcher. So that's what they called it at the time, the psychic research. So there was the original Society for Psychical Research was from London, and you would have big scientific names in it back in the late 19th century. Like today, nobody involved, like Bill Nye would never join the Society for Psychical Research because they'd be like, that's all crap.
Discredit him.
Right. But back then, like famous scientists would be involved in that. And the American was the American Society for Psychical Research. And those are still around. Then we talk a little bit about the American Society for Psychical Research in our interview with Nancy Zingroni.
Oh, okay. Right.
The parapsychologist.
That's right. Yep. I remember that.
And, okay. So they have an American psychical researcher. They've got a popular occult writer named Hereward Carrington.
Ew.
Right.
Oh my.
And Daniel Comstock, who introduced Technicolor to films.
Whoa. Hello.
So they have some people who are into this stuff there, and then they have some people who are into production of things there to watch over. William McDougall, who was a famous professor of psychology at Harvard.
Yes. I remember him.
And then Harry Houdini are there, and they're conducting the investigation for Scientific American, and she wants her $2,500.
Sure.
Well, Houdini and the supporters of Mina Crandon, Miss Marjorie, started immediately, friction right away, and they wanted Houdini off the panel and said that he couldn't be trusted and things like that, and like half the panel thought that she was for real. Wow. They were like, yeah, she is the real deal, and she should get that $2,500.
Wow. So it was like a split jury there.
And during the seances, I mean, Houdini would see her like doing little tricks, like a noise, and
because he could pick up on that stuff because he knows how to do it.
Yeah, he could see her lifting objects when they just said they looked like it moved on its own accord and things like that.
Wow.
So he's pointing out all this stuff from the sleight of hand because he knows sleight of hand. And then they start arguing, things like that. And this really helps, cause that rift between him and Arthur Conan Doyle. Well, what also happens at the time is that Houdini wants to talk to his mother. And Arthur Conan Doyle, his wife is a
medium.
Yeah, she's an automatic writer. And he's like, well, we're gonna do this. And so they have a seance where they contact Harry Houdini's mother. It's Arthur Conan Doyle and Harry Houdini, and then Arthur Conan Doyle's wife.
So she was the one leading the seance?
Yes.
Oh man, okay, this is interesting.
So then the mother, starts going through
So they actually contact her.
They say they actually contact her, right? She starts saying all this stuff about how she's so happy she can contact her son, about how she's missed him, about how it's been, it's too long since they talked and everything.
Yeah.
And it's all being written. And it's like a couple hours of stuff.
Wow.
All right. Houdini keeps quiet about it because it's his friend. But later when he's talking about it, the thing is my mother couldn't write a word of English. She only really spoke Hungarian and didn't really know English. So when she did speak English, she was very broken. It was also her birthday that day, and they didn't. And the Doyles, the Conan Doyles, didn't mention it.
So the stuff that they didn't know from having spoken to him,
right,
didn't surface.
Didn't
during
surface.
This.
So he just didn't believe it.
That's really sad too, because like that's a really cruel thing to do to a friend.
Yeah. It's just a little, like, we're going to try to contact your mother today. Okay, cool. Like, and then, I mean, I don't think that he thought that
she was faking it.
That she was faking it, but I think he thought that she was, crazy or whatever. And so that was what helped destroy that friendship. So I don't know how they're going to represent that in the show.
That's a big one. Yeah, that's a pretty huge.
Oh, there was another part. So Conan Doyle suggests a question. And Houdini's like, well, can my mother read my mind? And starts writing and starts talking about like what she sees in his head. And it's all incorrect. So all these things happen.
Yeah, so it just adds up to fake.
It adds up to fake. And so like he didn't want to like hurt like their feelings and everything, but it eventually just kind of led to...
Yeah, that would be a weird thing to have to, like, while maintaining a friendship, to know that.
One, and the thing is that, it eventually cracked with that Mina Crandon woman, because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was like, this whole investigation and contest is all crap.
Because he wanted to believe so badly.
So badly that he would willfully not see when people were tricking him and stuff like that. Like, not see that, hey, this chick's got ectoplasm coming out of her hoo-ha.
Oh.
Like there's something.
Or there's like strings holding the table up to the ceiling.
Right. There's something going on here. And so that kind of ended their friendship. And I'm interested to see how they actually will show that.
Yeah,
on the
me
program.
too. Me too.
Because it's like, how many seasons can the show go if they eventually, their
we all know
bromance,
the history that it's going to end.
Right, their bromance eventually ends. So Harry Houdini dies in 1926, and he's in Detroit, and he already was kind of feeling sick, so he wasn't feeling well, so he was laid out, and some like dude comes up to him and punches him in the stomach.
It's not
because
nice.
like one of his things was that he can withstand any punch or whatever. But like he's already laid out sick, and the guy wants to challenge him.
Oh, so it was an official. He didn't. It wasn't like he was walking down the street and somebody jumped him or something. Like he was.
I mean, but he was like the guy came there to do it, but it wasn't official or anything. But he wasn't prepared,
but he wasn't like, "Hey Harry, what's that over there?"
No, he kind of like I think Houdini like acquiesced to the punch, but he wasn't ready for it.
Oh,
and what happened is that he had appendicitis, and so that
was the final
made it worse.
blow. Yeah,
like that was like his appendix. He was sick, and they like I don't know if the one guy's punch could rupture your appendix.
Yeah,
like you got to be a real tough guy for one punch to you got to rupture the guy's appendix with one punch.
Yeah, but when you have an inflamed appendix, taking a punch right directly to your stomach is probably not gonna help matters.
So he dies, and his wife Bess, he made an agreement with her.
Oh, yeah.
That they had like a secret message that he would try to get that message to her. He would do it. If there was an afterlife, he would do whatever he could to get her that message.
Yeah, which is a cool idea. And I have to think that lots of people who believe in these things
like
would do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought about it.
That was, they had a seance a few years ago with the, trying to contact Andy Kaufman, the comedian.
Yeah.
And because Andy Kaufman was always, and one of his friends was like, yeah, we had a deal that he would try to contact, like he would try to say a certain thing. And
and you can't, and the two of you have to keep it a complete secret, obviously, because anybody else gets word of it, then
there's so much of Andy Kaufman's personal life. I mean, life was performance art.
Yeah.
So, and it was his writing partner was the one that said they had an agreement.
Okay.
So like, was he trying to pull some kind of con or whatever? And because I remember I watched a seance in this remembrance of Andy Kaufman they had.
Okay.
Right when that movie Man in the Moon came out, which was Jim Carrey playing Andy Kaufman.
Good.
Yeah, it was a great movie. But his writing partner, George Zunda, is played by Danny DeVito in the movie.
Oh.
Or Paul Giamatti. Okay, I can't remember. I haven't seen the movie in like 17
That's okay.
years.
I don't remember either, so.
Okay. I don't think it's Danny DeVito, but...
I don't remember. Yeah, I saw it in the theater, so it was
right.
like...
But either way, but in the seance, he's like, you got the... He's not like, you got the message, but he's like, I believe that was Andy talking to me. Right there. So when the medium comes, like the writing partner said that, I believe that was
the message was delivered, the secret message or whatever.
Like, that's like,
but then you never know if you trust him either because of all the
it's all
stunts
jokes
and
and stuff like that.
Right.
And there was a certain character that they used to play, that Andy Kaufman used to play, Tony Clifton.
Yeah.
He put all this fat makeup on and stuff like that. And sometimes his writing partner would play the character instead of Andy.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then Andy Kaufman would come out and people would think that they were watching Andy Kaufman the whole time and they really were watching the writing partner.
That's a good one. That's a good fool.
And so things like that. So Bess Houdini was Houdini's wife. And he often, like they show pictures, it's like Houdini and my two loves. And it's his wife and his mother.
Aww.
And it's very sweet, except Houdini was laying pipe all over.
Oh.
Like all over the country. He was out there. Like, it's a great, like,
harsh.
But there's a great thing. Like he has an affair with the wife of Jack London, the guy that wrote Call the Wild.
Gosh.
And like it was said that
that's
that once Houdini died, Bess found his love letters. That she found his love letters and then invited all the mistresses over to the house at the same time.
Man, you go, girl.
And just gave them all the letters. So she found his secret letters after he died. And she invited him.
Insane.
And didn't say anything, didn't do anything. She just said, these are for you. Like, these are your, these are your property kind of thing. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Houdini escaping the bonds of fidelity. So, okay. So they did the secret message and she ran a seance and they did this every year for 10 years after he died. And the final seance took place at a place we were actually right at today, the Knickerbocker Hotel.
Oh, okay.
In Hollywood. So not too far away from Griffith Park we were, and you could see the sign. You can still see like it's got a big, and it looks like it's from the 1920s kind of thing.
That's cool.
It's near the Roosevelt.
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
But yeah, so she said that if he couldn't contact me in 10 years, then I don't think he's ever going to.
Yeah.
And that was it. And she kind of gave up, and they did 10 years of
exhausting,
seances.
like each year. Oh gosh.
And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle dies in like 1934.
Okay.
So he dies just a few years after Harry Houdini. No ruptured appendix or something.
No drama.
He was just like
punch.
70. He's just 70 something, and
Wow.
that's like no punch. Like nobody punched that walrus and like ruptured his appendix.
Did he actually look like a walrus?
Kinda.
Like, okay, I'll look up a picture, but
Yeah. No, he kind of.
I was curious because now that's what I picture when I think of him. But
and interesting. The story made me feel bad for Jack London.
yeah, no kidding.
I was like, oh man, his wife's like writing to another guy saying like, you're the real love of my life and all these things, and he's sitting there writing stories about stories about the Yukon from the perspective of a wolf or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty sad.
Anyway, Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle show's coming out. It's on tonight.
If you watch it, let us know what you think.
Yeah, if you watch it, let us know what you think, because I'm definitely gonna check it out because I want to see what kind of stuff they do with that.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And if you would like to let us know what you thought, we have a Twitter account at Other Side Talk, or you can just check out our Facebook page.
Right. And we'll have those links are on OtherSidePodcast.com, and you can find the show notes for this episode at OtherSidePodcast.com/90.
90.
Holy cats.
Only 10 more until we are
officially like 100 episodes.
We need a party or something.
I think
you guys have any ideas for that?
So 10 weeks from now, let us know. Oh, that's like 2.5 months.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Okay.
Planning.
Yes.
We just finished planning a party.
Right.
Let's hold off. Before we
Take a
plan
deep breath.
Plan the next one. Anyway, so we're thinking for the song this week because so much of what Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, so much of their relationship to the spiritual dealt with caring about the people who they'd lost. And it dealt with the search to communicate. So we thought we would pick a Sunspot song this week about, it's more like a salute, a tribute to the people we have lost. So this song is called Viking Funeral.
Departed, and all the human sacrifice, and to all the broken hearted who never got to roll the dice. For tonight we ride with ghosts at our side of all the ones who faced been so unkind. And to all the broken arrows who never hit their mark, well, we'll see you on the flambeaux as we sing dirges in the dark. For tonight we ride with ghosts at our side of all the ones who fate's been so unkind. All the promises unkept and the tears we never wept. This one goes out to the left behind. For tonight we ride with ghosts at our side for all the ones who faced been so unkind. All the promises unkept and the tears we never wept. This one goes out to the left behind. For tonight we ride with ghosts at our side of all the ones who faced been so unkind, and the tears we never wept. This one goes out to the left. This one goes out to the left behind.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
It's where I walk in, I'm not wearing any clothes. And you're like, what's going on? It's like, I'm not wearing clothes. Don't forget, I said I'd be back.